The 10 richest states in America, but living there might make you poor. California has a $4.1 trillion economy. That's bigger than the United Kingdom, bigger than India, the richest state in America by a mile. But here's what nobody's telling you. Californians are poorer than people in Ohio, poorer than people in Texas, poorer than people in states most Americans can't even find on a map. How? Because being in a rich state doesn't mean you're rich. It might actually mean you're getting crushed. A teacher in California making $75,000 is struggling. A teacher in Tennessee making $52,000 is buying a house with a pool. The math doesn't lie. And when you see these numbers, you'll understand why 400,000 people are fleeing California every single year, while states like Florida, Texas, and Georgia are exploding with new residents. Today, I'm revealing the top 10 richest states in America. But more importantly, I'm showing you what life actually looks like in each one. This isn't about state pride. This is about your money. Let's start with number 10. State number 10, New Jersey, $853 billion GDP. The Millionaire factory next door. Let me introduce you to David Patel. David is a pharmaceutical researcher at Johnson & Johnson in New Brunswick, New Jersey. He makes $142,000 a year. Solid salary. But here's what makes David's story interesting. 5 years ago, David was offered the same job in San Francisco. Same company, same title. The California salary, $165,000. He chose New Jersey, and it was the smartest financial decision of his life. Why? Because that $142,000 in New Jersey goes further than $165,000 in California. Ide and David bought a 4-bedroom house for $485,000. His California colleagues, they're renting apartments for $3,800 a month. This is the New Jersey secret that nobody talks about. The Garden State has an $853 billion GDP packed into just 9.3 million people. That's one of the highest GDP per capita ratios in America. But unlike California or New York, the cost of living hasn't completely spiraled out of control. New Jersey is home to 24 Fortune 500 companies, pharmaceutical giants like Johnson & Johnson and Merck, financial powerhouses like Prudential. The biotech corridor running through Central Jersey employs over 350,000 people in high-paying research jobs. And here's something most people don't realize. The Port of New York and New Jersey handles 8 million shipping containers every year. That's $200 billion in goods flowing through Jersey's docks annually. But let me be honest about the downside. Property taxes in New Jersey are brutal. The average homeowner pays $9,200 per year. That's the highest in the entire country. David Patel's property tax bill, $14,500 annually. That's more than $1,200 per month just in taxes. Sarah Chen, a teacher in Hoboken, puts it bluntly, I make $68,000. After property taxes, it feels like $55,000. New Jersey gives you great schools and great healthcare, but they make you pay for it. The median household income in New Jersey is $97,000, significantly higher than the national average of $75,000. People here are making money, but they're also watching a big chunk disappear to taxes. Still, for people like David, the math works. He's building equity, saving for retirement. He and his kids go to some of the best public schools in America. In California, he'd be renting forever. New Jersey might not be flashy, you won't see it on Instagram, but quietly, it's creating more middle-class millionaires than almost anywhere else. State number 9, Washington, $860 billion GDP. Where baristas work next to billionaires. Jennifer Okonkwo moved to Seattle in 2019 with a computer science degree and $34,000 in student loans. Today, she's a senior software engineer at Amazon making $287,000 a year. Her student loans are paid off. She owns a condo worth $780,000, 5 years, from debt to wealth. This is Washington State, the land where tech dreams actually come true. Washington's $860 billion GDP is powered by 3 words: Microsoft, Amazon, Boeing. And these 3 companies alone employ over 200,000 people in the state and generate hundreds of billions in revenue. Seattle has earned the nickname Cloud Capital of the World because Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and countless cloud startups operate here. If you work in tech, Washington is where careers accelerate fastest. But here's the twist that makes Washington unique among rich states. No state income tax. Jennifer's $287,000 salary? She keeps more of it than she would in California, New York, or New Jersey. Washington doesn't touch your paycheck. That's a massive advantage for high earners. Marcus Williams, a Boeing engineer in Everett, explains, "I moved from Illinois where I was paying 5% state income tax. On my salary, that's an extra $8,000 in my pocket every year. Over a career, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars." Washington also leads the nation in exports. $58 billion worth of aircraft, software, and agricultural products leave the state annually. The biggest trading partners? Canada, China, and Japan. And speaking of agriculture, here's a fun fact. Washington grows 10 billion apples every year. 65% of all apples eaten in America came from Washington orchards. Add in wine, wheat, and hops for craft beer, and you've got an economy that's surprisingly diverse. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. Washington has no income tax, but it has one of the highest sales taxes in America. 10.25% in Seattle. Everything you buy costs more. And housing? Seattle's median home price is now $815,000. For regular workers, not tech workers, that's impossible. Rachel Torres is a nurse at Swedish Medical Center making $89,000 a year. I love my job. I love Seattle. But I'm 34 years old and I can't afford to buy anything here. Every house I look at gets 15 offers, all from tech workers paying cash. This is the Washington paradox. If you're in tech, it's paradise. If you're not, you're watching everyone else get rich while you struggle to keep up. Jennifer Okonkwo knows she's lucky. I tell people back home in Georgia that Seattle is amazing. And it is, for people like me. But half this city is getting priced out by the other half. Washington proves that a state can be rich without making everyone rich. The rising tide isn't lifting all boats here. It's lifting yachts while rowboats sink. State number 8, Georgia, $889 billion GDP, where Hollywood moved south. 3 years ago, Michael Thompson was a struggling actor in Los Angeles, working as a waiter, going to auditions, getting rejected, the typical Hollywood dream turning into a Hollywood nightmare. Then his agent called with strange advice. Move to Atlanta. Michael thought it was a joke. Atlanta? For acting? Today, Michael has appeared in 14 productions, Marvel films, Netflix series, HBO shows. He makes $175,000 a year and owns a house in Decatur that cost him $340,000. In LA, he was broke. In Georgia, he's thriving. This is what happened when Hollywood discovered the South. Georgia's $889 billion GDP sounds impressive, but what's really impressive is how fast it's growing. In 2024 alone, more than 400 TV shows and movies were filmed in Georgia. The film industry now pumps over $4 billion annually into the state's economy. Why Georgia? Tax incentives. Tax. Adding the state offers a 30% tax credit on production costs. That means a $100 million movie saves $30 million by filming in Atlanta instead of Los Angeles. Studios like Pinewood, Atlanta, where Black Panther and Avengers Endgame were filmed, have transformed Georgia into Hollywood of the South. But Georgia isn't just movies. Atlanta is home to 18 Fortune 500 companies: Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, Home Depot, UPS. The world's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson, moves 100 million passengers every year. That's more than any airport on Earth. And here's what makes Georgia special for regular people. The median household income is $71,000, not the highest. But housing prices average $320,000. That's nearly half of what you'd pay in California for a similar home. Lisa Washington is a marketing manager at Coca-Cola making $95,000. I moved from New York 3 years ago, same job title. I actually took a $15,000 pay cut, but my rent went from $3,200 to $1,600. I'm saving more money now than I ever did making more. That's the Georgia math. Lower salaries, but way lower costs. The net result? More money in your pocket. But let's talk about the problems. Atlanta traffic is brutal. The average commuter spends 74 hours per year stuck in traffic. That's almost 2 full work weeks just sitting in your car. And the summer heat? June through September, it's 90+ degrees with humidity that makes it feel like 105. For people from cooler climates, it's suffocating. Marcus Freeman, an accountant from Chicago, learned this the hard way. Nobody warned me about Atlanta summers. I literally couldn't go outside from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. for 4 months. My electric bill hit $380 in August. Georgia is booming, no question. But you better love heat, traffic, and sweet tea because that's the price of admission. State number 7, Ohio, $933 billion GDP. The state that proves boring can make you rich. Let me tell you about Emma Rodriguez. Emma is a nurse practitioner at the Cleveland Clinic, one of the top hospitals in the entire world. She makes $118,000 a year. But here's the number that matters. Her mortgage is $1,400 a month for a 4-bedroom house with a backyard. Her sister is also a nurse practitioner. Same qualifications, same experience. She works in Boston and makes $127,000. Her rent? $2,900 for a 2-bedroom apartment? Who's actually richer? Emma is, by a lot. This is Ohio, the state nobody thinks about until they do the math. Ohio's $933 billion GDP comes from something old-fashioned, actually making things. The state has over 680,000 manufacturing jobs, automotive parts, aerospace components, steel, plastics. Ohio is still the industrial heart of America, but it's not just factories anymore. The Cleveland Clinic and Ohio State University have turned the state into a healthcare and research powerhouse. The biotech sector employs nearly 900,000 people. Columbus has become a legitimate tech hub, with Intel investing $20 billion in semiconductor manufacturing. That's right. Intel is building the largest semiconductor factory in American history in Columbus, Ohio, creating 10,000 jobs with average salaries of $135,000. The secret advantage of Ohio? Affordability. Listen to these numbers. The median home price in Ohio is $225,000. The national average is $415,000. That's almost half. The median household income is $66,000, not high, but when housing costs half as much, that $66,000 stretches like $100,000 in coastal cities. James Chen moved from San Jose to Columbus for a job at Intel. I was making $145,000 in California. I took $130,000 in Ohio. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I just bought a 5-bedroom house for $380,000. In San Jose, that house would cost $2.2 million. I'm not crazy, everyone else is. Ohio is attracting a specific type of person, people who can do math. But here's the honest truth about Ohio's downsides. Winters are cold, not Montana cold, but cold enough. Cleveland gets 54 inches of snow annually, gray skies from November to April. And the boring reputation? It's not entirely unfair. Ohio doesn't have beaches, doesn't have mountains. The nightlife in Columbus can't compare to New York or LA. Ashley Williams, 27, moved from Columbus to Austin after 3 years. Ohio is great for families, for building wealth. But I'm young. I want energy, culture, things to do. Ohio felt like I was skipping to retirement early. Ohio isn't for everyone. If you want excitement, look elsewhere. But if you want to actually build something, save money, buy a house, raise a family, Ohio is quietly becoming one of the smartest choices in America. State number 6, Pennsylvania, $1 trillion GDP. When steel dies and healthcare rises. Robert Miller's grandfather worked in the steel mills of Pittsburgh for 42 years. His father worked there for 23 years before the mills closed. Robert works at UPMC, one of the largest healthcare systems in America. He's a data analyst making $87,000 a year. 3 generations, 3 completely different economies, all in the same city. This is Pennsylvania, a state that reinvented itself. Pennsylvania just crossed the $1 trillion GDP mark. That's a massive milestone. And it happened because the state didn't die when steel died. It adapted. Pittsburgh used to be synonymous with pollution and factory work. Today, it's a hub for robotics, artificial intelligence, and autonomous vehicles. Carnegie Mellon University has helped transform the city into a tech research powerhouse. Uber, Aurora, and Argo AI all built their self-driving car programs in Pittsburgh. Philadelphia, on the other side of the state, dominates healthcare and biotech. The University of Pennsylvania, Jefferson Health, and a corridor of pharmaceutical companies create tens of thousands of high-paying jobs. The energy sector is booming too. The Marcellus Shale has made Pennsylvania one of the top natural gas producers in America. Billions of cubic feet flow from Pennsylvania wells every day. Here's an unusual fact. Pennsylvania leads the nation in mushroom production, 500 million pounds annually. That doesn't sound glamorous, but it's a $1 billion industry. The cost of living? Very reasonable. Median home price, $260,000. Median household income, $72,000. You can still afford a house on a normal salary here. Maria Santos moved from New Jersey to the Lehigh Valley for work. I was paying $2,800 rent in Hoboken. Now I have a mortgage of $1,750 for a house that's twice the size. Same commute time to New York. I don't know why everyone doesn't do this. But Pennsylvania has cracks. The state is losing population. Between 2020 and 2025, Pennsylvania lost nearly 40,000 residents. Younger people are leaving for warmer states, more exciting cities, and the urban-rural divide is severe. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are thriving. But drive 2 hours in any direction, and you'll see the old Pennsylvania. Closed factories, struggling towns, communities that never recovered from the manufacturing collapse. Tom Crawford lives in Johnstown, a former steel town. People in Pittsburgh talk about reinvention. Here in Johnstown, there's nothing being reinvented. There's just nothing. My kids left for North Carolina, they're never coming back. Pennsylvania is a state of two economies. The cities are winning. Everything else is slowly fading. On which Pennsylvania you experience depends entirely on where you land. State number 5. Illinois, $1.1 trillion GDP. One city carrying an entire state. Here's a fact that will blow your mind. Chicago contributes over 80% of Illinois' entire GDP. One city, 80%. That means if you removed Chicago from Illinois, the state would drop from 5th richest to somewhere around 25th. Chicago isn't just the engine of Illinois, Chicago is Illinois, economically speaking. Derek Johnson works on the trading floor at CME Group in downtown Chicago. He makes $340,000 a year trading commodity futures. Every day, trillions of dollars flow through this building. The coffee you drink, the gas in your car, the wheat in your bread, it's all priced here in Chicago. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange handles more commodity trading than anywhere else on Earth. And this is where global prices are set. Add in 37 Fortune 500 companies, O'Hare Airport moving 83 million passengers annually, and world-class universities like Northwestern and University of Chicago, and you've got an economic powerhouse. But step outside Chicago, and you'll find a different story. Amanda Torres grew up in Decatur, a small city in central Illinois. People in Chicago have no idea what's happening in the rest of the state. Towns are emptying out. Factories are closed. Kids graduate high school and leave immediately. No income tax. It wasn't a hard decision. Illinois proves that a rich state and a healthy state aren't the same thing. The money is there, but so are the problems. State number 4, Florida, $1.7 trillion GDP, where everyone is moving and nobody knows why. Florida adds 1,000 new residents every single day. 1,000 people wake up somewhere else and decide Florida is where they're going. That's 365,000 new Floridians every year. To end, they're not just retirees anymore. Jessica Patel, 29, moved from New York City to Miami 3 years ago. She runs a marketing agency and makes $145,000 a year. Everyone kept telling me I was crazy to leave New York. 3 years later, half my New York friends have followed me down here. Florida's $1.7 trillion GDP is being fueled by this migration. Remote workers, tech companies, finance firms, even hedge funds are relocating from Connecticut to Palm Beach. And the number one reason? No state income tax. On a $200,000 salary, that's $10,000 to $15,000 you keep that you wouldn't in New York or California. Over a career, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tourism still matters, obviously. 140 million visitors annually. Disney pulls in 58 million guests. The beaches, the weather, the lifestyle, it all brings cash flowing in. Plus, AGU the ports. The Port of Miami and Port Everglades handle billions in Latin American trade, and the aerospace industry is exploding. SpaceX and Blue Origin are launching rockets from Cape Canaveral, creating thousands of high-paying engineering jobs. But Florida has serious problems that newcomers discover too late. First, the heat. It's not California sunny, it's 95 degrees with 90% humidity for 5 straight months. You will sweat walking to your mailbox. Second, hurricanes. Ian in 2022 caused $110 billion in damage. Every year from June to November, you're watching weather maps and wondering if your house will survive. Third, and this is the big one, insurance. Carlos Mendez bought a house in Tampa in 2021. My homeowner's insurance was $1,800 a year when I bought. It's now $7,400. That's not a typo. 4 times higher in 3 years. Some of my neighbors can't get insurance at all. Florida's home insurance market is collapsing. Major insurers are fleeing the state. The ones that stay are charging astronomical rates. That affordable Florida home suddenly costs an extra $500 per month just to insure. Median household income in Florida is $67,000, not high. And while there's no income tax, property taxes, sales taxes, and insurance eat away at those savings fast. Florida is a math problem. For some people, the math works. For others, they move down expecting paradise and discover hidden costs everywhere. State number 3, New York, $2.3 trillion IGDP, the money capital of the world that's losing its people. Let me say something that sounds contradictory. New York has a $2.3 trillion economy, and it has a population crisis. Both are true. New York has lost almost 600,000 residents since 2020, the biggest population loss of any state. People are fleeing, but the money stays. Why? Because Wall Street doesn't need masses of people, it needs elite specialists. Christine Park works at Goldman Sachs. She's 31, makes $450,000 a year including bonus, and lives in a $4,200 per month apartment in Manhattan. Everyone who works here is extremely good at what they do. There's no dead weight. That's why the money per person is so high even as people leave. New York's GDP per capita is $117,000, the highest in America. The people who stay are wealthy. The people leaving are everyone else. The finance sector alone accounts for 28% of the state's GDP. Trillions change hands daily on the NYSE and NASDAQ. The media giants like NBC Universal and Warner Bros. Discovery operate here. Healthcare employs 1.3 million people, but the cost of living is crushing. Average rent in Manhattan, $4,500 per month. Average home price in the suburbs, $680,000. And state income taxes, up to 10.9%. Add in New York City tax, and high earners lose nearly 14% to local taxes before federal. Maria Gonzalez was a teacher in Brooklyn for 12 years. She made $78,000. I did the math 100 times. I couldn't afford to stay. I moved to North Carolina, took a $15,000 pay cut, and somehow I'm saving more money now. That tells you everything. Teachers, firefighters, nurses, service workers, they're being pushed out. What remains is increasingly a city of the very rich and the very poor, with the middle class disappearing. New York is still the financial capital of the planet. That won't change soon. But it's becoming a place that serves the wealthy while pricing out everyone else. State number 2, Texas, $2.7 trillion GDP. No income tax, no problem. Well, some problems. Texas is the state people love to move to. No state income tax. Booming job market. Austin becoming a tech hub. Houston dominating energy. Dallas packed with corporate headquarters, everyone's going to Texas, except some of them are coming back. Daniel Kim, a software engineer, moved from LA to Austin in 2021. Tesla was moving there. Apple was expanding. It felt like the future. 2 years later, Daniel moved back to California. Nobody told me about property taxes. California has no state income tax for me because I work remote, but I pay 1% property tax. Texas has no income tax, but property tax was 2.8%. On a $600,000 house, that's $16,800 a year. Plus, my electricity bill during the winter storm was $1,200 for 1 week. Texas has benefits. Absolutely, $2.7 trillion economy, 30 million people. The second most populous state and growing fast. Oil and gas production leads the nation. The tech migration to Austin is real. Tesla, Oracle, and Apple have all expanded there. Home prices are reasonable compared to California. Average around $330,000 statewide. But the reality is more complicated than the brochure. Summer is brutal. 53 days over 100 degrees in Austin in 2024. Your electricity bill in August can easily hit $400 to $500. The power grid is unstable. The 2021 winter storm killed over 200 people and caused $195 billion in damage. Texas operates its own power grid to avoid federal regulation, and critics say it's not built for extreme weather. Healthcare infrastructure is strained. Traffic in Houston and Dallas is among the worst in America. And here's what really surprises people. When you add up property taxes, sales taxes, and insurance, Texas isn't that much cheaper than California for many people. Rebecca Torres moved from Los Angeles to Dallas. Year 1, I thought I was crushing it. No income tax. Year 2, I realized property taxes ate half that savings. Year 3, my homeowner's insurance doubled. Now I'm not sure I'm actually ahead. Texas is still the land of opportunity for many. Energy workers, entrepreneurs, people who want space and don't mind heat. But it's not the tax paradise it's marketed as. Always do the full math. On state number 1, California, $4.1 trillion, a GDP. The greatest economy on earth that's driving people away. California is not the richest state in America. California is the 5th largest economy on earth. Bigger than the United Kingdom. Bigger than India. $4.1 trillion. Silicon Valley alone produces more than 50% of the world's venture capital investment. Apple, Google, Meta, Netflix, thousands of startups, all born here. Hollywood still generates billions in entertainment revenue. Agriculture in the Central Valley produces $51 billion annually, feeding a third of America's vegetables. And yet, Californians are leaving at a record pace, 400,000 net loss per year. Why would anyone leave the richest state on the planet? Because being in a rich state doesn't mean you're rich. Kevin Nakamura is a firefighter in Los Angeles. He makes $92,000 a year. He also can't afford to buy a home in the city he protects. Median home in LA is $900,000. I'd need $180,000 for down payment. I've saved $41,000 in 8 years. At this rate, I can buy a house in 2047. I'll be 61 years old. That's California in one story. Incredible wealth existing alongside people who work essential jobs and can't afford to live. The median household income is $91,000, the highest measured. But average home prices exceed $800,000. In San Francisco, $1.4 million. State income tax hits 13.3% at the top rate, the highest in America. Gas taxes are the highest too. A gallon of gas in California costs $1.50 more than the national average. Allison Chen worked in tech in San Jose for 7 years. She made $165,000. I was exhausted. Working constantly to afford an apartment I barely spent time in, watching housing prices rise faster than my salary. I moved to Denver, took a 20% pay cut, and bought a house my first year. I'm 34 years old and I finally feel like an adult. California is proof that GDP means nothing if regular people can't benefit from it. The wealth is real, but it's concentrated. Tech billionaires, entertainment executives, venture capitalists. For them, California is paradise. For teachers, nurses, firefighters, office workers, it's a place that used to be affordable and now feels impossible. Conclusion: what this actually means for you. So where does this leave us? We've looked at 10 states with a combined GDP of over $16 trillion. That's more than half of America's entire economy in just 10 states. But here's what I hope you take away from this. GDP is not quality of life. California has the biggest economy, but a teacher there struggles while a teacher in Ohio builds wealth. New York has the highest GDP per capita, but middle-class families can't afford to stay. Florida has no income tax, but insurance costs might eat your savings. Texas is booming, but property taxes surprise people. The real question isn't which state is richest. The question is, which state is richest for me? And that depends on your salary, your career, your family situation, your tolerance for weather, and what you actually want from life. The people thriving in America right now, they're the ones who did the math, who looked beyond the headlines, who understood that a high salary means nothing if costs eat it all. Jennifer moved to Seattle and got rich in tech. James moved to Ohio and bought a house with 5 bedrooms. Kevin stayed in California and can't even start. Same country, completely different outcomes. If you're thinking about where to live, where to work, where to build your life, don't just ask, where's the most money? Ask, where will I actually keep the most money? That's the real question. What state are you in right now? Are you thriving or just surviving? Drop your honest experience in the comments, and if you found this valuable, subscribe, because next week we're revealing the 10 poorest states in America. And trust me, the stories there are even more shocking.